Welcome back, CAA football fans. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Bobby Broyles here with Tim McDonald. Tim, the season begins this week, sir.
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's get it going.
That's all the excitement you're going to give me right now?
Nah, just messing. I'm pumped.
Well, but before the year kicks off, we have 3 teams remaining in our 12 teams and 12-day series. And today we get a look at the Richmond Spiders. UR finished the month of November last season 4-0. I believe that's the second year in a row they have done that. And you could argue that the Spiders, once again, were one of the hottest teams in the FCS coming down the stretch, especially because of the play of quarterback Michael Strauss.
Strauss, I know we've said it a lot of times, but he really had a record-setting year last season. Set program records for passing yards, attempts, touchdowns, and completions, Bob, and it was just insane. No one in the nation wanted to face Richmond. Despite their record, no one wanted to face Richmond at the end of the year. Look at the start of the season. They win 34-0 at BMI. The next week, I think it was a season changer for them. They lose at NC State, a game where they really could have won easily. In the last couple seconds, NC State kicks a field goal. From that moment forward, we saw a different Richmond team. They lose the next week at Gardner-Webb. The month of October, they don't earn a win, but you got to give Richmond a little bit of credit here, ending the season with 4 straight wins. No one wanted to face them at all. Strauss, I think you just look at the numbers he was putting up, it was ridiculous too, and I know it's easy to sit here and say it now, but if Richmond played like they did at the end of the year throughout consistently, there's no question that they would have been a playoff team. Strauss, just the numbers from last year, 333 completions, which is ridiculous, 3,808 yards, 26 touchdowns. I just don't see how the fact that he has another year is exciting for this league, and I expect nothing better but for him to improve on those.
Yeah, that NC State game when you want to, talking about a season changer, Ben Edwards got hurt that game.
He got hurt that game.
And it completely changed the outcome, really, of the whole season. Coach Danny Rocco sat down with us at Media Day, and this is what he had to say about Strauss.
Well, I think the most impressive thing with Mike Strauss has been his development. When we started the season a year ago, I think he's a much better, much more mature player and quarterback right now. As we went through last season, we were able to really assess his skill set and get into a rhythm and a style that he was very comfortable with. Going 4-0 in November was big. I think that's really when our team hit our stride last year. Really, we're playing pretty good football there at the end of the season. So his maturation process was impressive to watch unfold, and the thought would be here he'll pick up where he left off, coming off a pretty strong spring, and very much has a good mastery of our offense right now.
Tim, this team showed signs of greatness on offense last year, but can that be maintained throughout an entire season? I'm guessing with 8 starters back on that side, the O could be a nightmare for opposing teams.
It's interesting, too. We've talked about so many teams. We've talked about Delaware, we've talked about William & Mary, and we've talked about one keyword, which has been consistency. And offensively, you look at this Richmond team, at times, they're moving the ball. When they needed a big drive versus Delaware to win the game, they could go 75 yards in 40 seconds, no problem. Yep. Strauss could hit Barnett down the middle, all these weapons. And then other games like Rhode Island, where they only managed 10 points. Versus Gardner-Webb, they only managed 10 points. It's a question of consistency. It's easy to just sit here and say that, like I say, all the time. Still, this year, you'd think with the returning weapons, we look at Stephen Barnett, one of the best receivers in the FCS, I think, over 15 yards per catch last year. Only 5 touchdowns, but Strauss did a great job of spreading the ball around. Especially look at those last 4 games of the season last year. We look at Seth Fisher, a guy who moves to tailback late in the season. Jacoby Green even came on a little bit. Still, offensively, Richmond, I think, only 113 yards per game rushing. I know we talked about that all year about them needing balance, but you're going to need to improve. That was last in the CAA, only a little over 100 yards. They're going to need to get that balance to make teams really make teams honest.
Well, again, here's Coach Rock on what he expects from his offense in 2014.
At the end of the year, I think we re-established our identity. We were able to run the ball late in the year as our O-line kind of got set in, and we moved the fullback to tailback and Seth Fisher. So you're right, holistically, I think we're back to being what we need to be, a balanced attack, an attack that can control the line of scrimmage, with a good veteran physical offensive line, a running game that forces defenses to have to match their numbers to your numbers, which will do nothing but free up our opportunity to get the ball down the field in the passing game. So a year ago, we really weren't set up this way, and I think it cost us dearly in some very close, hard-fought games where we couldn't control the ball well enough to rest our defense and to finish football games. So hopefully that's the formula as we do return a number of veteran players, a number of experienced players, allowing us to go back to a style of offense that should create some balance. And this should offer us a real chance to be very productive offensively.
Richmond earned respect in the CAA preseason poll at number 3, and in my mind is a legitimate threat to win the conference title this season.
I think I agree for you for the most part. I still think the million-dollar question this year is going to be how that defense responds. So many times we forget when you have these high-flying offenses, you could go up and down the conference, so these teams who run no-huddles. You forget that the defenses, while no-huddle offenses are great and they're fun to watch and they score a lot of points, the defense is really, it's a completely different mindset. There's a lot of times they're on the field for long lengths of times or quick lengths of time because the offenses score so quick. This Richmond D wasn't that porous last year in terms of just total D. Actually had one of the better secondaries, led CAA football with 17 interceptions. I'm looking to guys this year like Aaron Rowan, Reggie Barnett, who's the brother of Stephen Barnett, Evan Kelly, who's a guy who was a second-team All-CAA guy last year. A lot of players right now on this Richmond defense who've been through the grind and are seniors and upperclassmen. I'm looking to them really to say, yeah, everyone talks about our offense and everyone knows what Strauss and Barnett and all these players can do. I think Richmond's defense brings that type of mentality to them. I think they know that they're often overlooked, and I think that only helps them.
The Spiders' 2 rivalry games to end the regular season will be difficult tasks, with James Madison at home on November 15th and William & Mary on the road the following week. Both games will be showcased nationally on the NBC Sports Network, Tim.
And that William & Mary game last year, we saw Richmond played so well, and that really kept William & Mary out of the playoffs because Richmond won that game. Really, really tough games to end the season, but again, you'd love to have a lot on the plate at the end of the year. It gives players a little bit more going. I want to start a non-conference play. That's right with you. I would love to do that.
You love the non-conference.
I do. You look at Richmond's opening game versus Morehead State at home the next week. Very interesting game. They travel to Virginia. We know who the UVA head coach is, Mike London, former Richmond. A lot of irony here. Michael Rocco, who's the second-string quarterback at Richmond, played at UVA, transferred. Michael Strauss played at UVA, same deal. A lot of irony here. It's only about an hour trip down the road. It's going to be a really interesting game, too, considering that Virginia plays UCLA in Week 1, Richmond in Week 2, and Louisville in Week 3. You have to think at some point UVA knows, because of Mike London, knows how dangerous Richmond's going to be, but still, it's tough to not want to look ahead a little bit. I still think you look at, they have 6 home games out of their, so 6 games are home, 6 games are away for Richmond this year. The key games I think are going to be UNH, Nova, and James Madison, like you said. All those are very important conference games. The UNH game too, especially September 20th. What a way to open up the season for both squads.
Absolutely. Well, the Spiders kicked their season off Saturday night at 6 o'clock, playing host to Morehead State, before making that trip to Charlottesville to take on ACC foe Virginia on September the 6th, a game that can be seen live on ESPN3.
And Bobby, as always, be sure to head over to caafootball.wordpress.com to catch the Who I Am features that spotlight a pair of Spider players that were great guys we got to know on Media Day.
Villanova is next up on our 12 Teams in 12 Days series. Tim and I will return tomorrow as we take a look at this year's CAA Preseason Offensive Player of the Year, John Robertson and his Wildcat squad. For Tim McDonald, I am Bobby Broyles, and you are watching CAA.TV.